has a long set of experience in this industry, and over the past couple of years has had tremendous success as she started her company, Sahi Cosmetics. She has been part of the MBA program at the Raw School of Business and has been a part of the Michigan Business Challenge, where she was the winner, and has been very successful in raising money, nearly $300,000 over the past couple of years. One of the highlights that we've seen of Shelly recently was that she was the winner for Steve Case's event that he held here, Rise of the Rest, and was recognized as one of the best entrepreneurs, rising entrepreneurs that we have in Ann Arbor. So please join me in welcoming Shelly Sahi.
Awesome, thanks so much. Here, I'm gonna move this so I can stand. I like to move around a lot. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I know this was sort of last minute. We had to change to doing a live stream, but I promise you, you guys are still gonna learn so much about my experience. This is actually a story that I've never told anybody. So you guys are the first to know a lot of really personal information about me and how I became the entrepreneur that took the risk to start a company. This is something that took a lot of courage, and it takes a lot of basically time to be okay with putting yourself out there. And I want to tell you that story. Could we pull up my slides, please? Okay, can they see my slides as well? Awesome. So this is essentially the story of the imperfect girl. That's me. And it all starts off with my upbringing. Growing up, my parents were very strict Indian parents. They both moved here as teenagers, so even though they listened to Prince and Madonna, like I swear I saw those CDs, and it's crazy to even see my parents in that light. But they also wanted to instill the Indian culture in me, and a lot of the values that they had growing up, they wanted to make sure that I followed them as well. They had this little game called Bad Cop, where no one ever took my side, right? If I ever got a 92, and 92 was never good enough. It was always what happened to the other 8%, right? The one person who always took my side was my grandma when she lived with us, and it was like an intermittent, like couple of years here and there. My grandma was the coolest person I had ever met, and that's because she was just very spunky, she was clever, she was amazing, you know, and even when she was sick with Guillain-Barré syndrome, she made sure that she looked the best no matter what. And she's the one who taught me fashion and style. So Guillain-Barré syndrome is where your neurons fire and the other one doesn't read it properly. So the signal gets lost in translation. So essentially she couldn't move her arms and her legs. And she was like this for a couple of years. And during that time, I was the one taking care of her. She would make sure somehow that the nurse had a new nail polish waiting for me every Sunday when I got there. So we would paint our nails together. That was our thing. And then I would go home with another nail polish, and my collection was like, you know, unbelievably large because she kept doing this, but it was our way of bonding with one another. And before my grandma passed away, she told me that she wants to see me help people like her. She wanted to see me help people that were sick. And so that was my goal, basically. Is this a clicker, by the way? Thank you, sorry. So that was my goal, was to become a doctor. After she passed away, after my Sweet 16, she didn't get to see me go to the University of Michigan, which was my dream. She knew that too, and I was so sad that she wasn't around to watch that happen. But I wanted to keep her spirit alive by doing what she wanted me to do. So it all starts at Bates 2, North Campus. What? The top picture is of me and my roommates chilling in Bates 2, and I was having the time of my life, right? I got into U of M, my favorite school. I'm going to double major in bio and philosophy, and I'm just so gung-ho about being a doctor. And I'm taking anthropology and gen chem, and they're like really easy classes, right? So it was really easy for me to be like, yeah, I'm gonna do this. I even dressed up as a sexy scientist for Halloween. It was next level, really. But then I started taking the harder classes like genetics and biochem, and I realized I don't really have a whole lot of passion for what I'm learning. And I looked around myself and I saw that all my friends are also Indian girls that all have the same dream, and I'm starting to wonder, is this my dream or is this something that I'm supposed to be doing because that's what society told me? That's what my parents told me. That's what my grandma told me to do. And I started going through this existential crisis. You know, what am I doing here? My parents are paying so much money for my classes and I'm not enjoying it. I don't like genetics. I don't care about proteins, like in this regard. I do want to help people, that's for sure. Don't get me wrong. But I just don't know if I can do it by being a doctor. I was getting really burnt out, basically. I took the MCAT 6 times after I graduated. That's an like unbearable amount of time to take a standardized test. Trust me. I couldn't. Oh, sorry. Can you guys hear me okay? Is this okay? Okay, good. It was to the point where I didn't even want to finish my applications for med school. So I applied to my primary applications for all the schools and I got secondaries. This is how med school kind of works. You apply first time, give them a bunch of money, and they're like, okay, maybe we like you, so here's a few more questions and give us some more money. And basically, I didn't fill out my secondary applications. And I also didn't tell my parents that I decided to do this. So in the mail comes a letter from Wayne State University, and it said, "Dear Shelly, thank you so much for applying to Wayne State University's medical school. Unfortunately, because you didn't finish your secondary application, you have passively withdrawn. We hope you reconsider next year." And my dad opened that letter. And he came to me and he's like, "What is this? You were supposed to go to med school. We paid so much money. What is your plan?" And at that point, it was the lowest point in my life. You know, I didn't know what I was going to do. I have this amazing degree, and all I ever did for a job was work at the University of Michigan, the research labs. And basically, I was a lab tech for $15 an hour. So I got like the typical line from my parents that I'm going to work at McDonald's for the rest of my life, right? So it was a super low point. I thought I was an epic failure. My parents even knew I was really depressed and I didn't know what I was going to do. They even bought me this amazing dog because they just wanted me to like pick my life back up and figure my stuff out. And the thing is, I've always been a straight A student. I've always gotten high grades on tests, standardized tests, normal tests. Like, seeing me in this point was devastating for them because they didn't understand what I was going through. And it was essentially that for the first time in my life, I was starting to think about what I wanted to do. And I decided that I did like beauty and fashion, but I'm not going to tell them this because I don't even know what that career path would look like. But I'll go into business because I like business and I think that that's something I can excel at. So I started applying to lab jobs, research jobs that were in the private sector. And by chance, whatever skill set that I got from the U of M labs, working on SCM and microscopy work, they needed me to do that on aluminum spot welds at Ford Motor Company. So I started at the Research and Innovation Center at Ford. And that was basically bottom of the totem pole job. I worked as like a lab technician, essentially. They called me a research engineer, but it was bottom totem pole, okay? And I worked my way up. I worked on some pretty big projects like the F-150. In 2014, they made the truck bed out of aluminum, and that's actually a picture of me and my team. And I went to the business office after a few years, and I met with the manager there, and I said, "Listen, I had no engineering experience, and yet look at everything that I learned. I proved myself that I'm a fast learner. Give me a shot here at the business office. I promise you I'll be the best analyst you have." He's like, "Okay, I'll give you 6 months. You're going to work with the electrical director, and you need to learn every single electrical wiring in the car." And I was like, done. I knew that Ford had a library, so I went and I checked out every book about the electrical system in a vehicle, and I would read it at home. I would not sleep for a whole month. I learned everything about the cars. I met up with all the engineers at Ford, all the managers took meetings with me, which was amazing, and they taught me everything I needed to know about chassis wiring, powertrain wiring, everything. Switches, buttons, electrical seats. I could go on about this forever, but basically, I proved myself in 1 month when my manager only gave me 6 months. And I did that because I wanted to prove to them that their decision was right in giving me a chance. And then my life was good. I was in the business office. My salary kept jumping higher and higher and higher. I was really loving it there. I was living at home, so I had no expenses. So I started wasting my money on really crazy stuff like Chanel jewelry and red bottom heels. You know, I had bloody shoes before.
Should be good now.
Okay, testing 1, 2, 3. Yeah, okay. I'm so sorry, guys. Thank you so much for bearing with us. You didn't miss anything too special. I was just talking about how great my life was working at Ford. I had a bunch of really expensive stuff I kept buying myself. Loved life, but I wasn't able to get promoted. I was at this point where the next step up was to become a supervisor. It's called LL6, and I needed to get an MBA. My manager said, go get an MBA. So I was like, done. I took the GMAT one time and I crushed it, which was very surprising to me. It just speaks about like being passionate about what you're doing. You'll be better at it. But anyways, I digress. I went to Ross and I got my MBA in the evening. I did 1 year, and the whole time my manager was saying, you know what, we're gonna get Ford to pay for it. I'll put in the paperwork. But he actually never did. So when I confronted him after a year, he's like, yeah, I'm having a hard time putting in the paperwork. I'm not really sure if we'll be able to pay for it. And I was like, that's okay, don't worry. I'm gonna go finish my MBA full time, and if I wanna come back to Ford afterwards, I will. I already had all the connections there, so I quit with full intentions of coming back to Ford, mind you. I just had my, I think it was my 26th birthday, August 20th, 2015. That's a picture of me and my friends at the party. And I was living life. I was gonna go to Ross full time that fall semester, and bam, something hit me that completely changed my life. What happened, what I didn't tell you, was 4 years before this picture, I found out that I had a benign tumor on my brain, on my pituitary gland, which is the gland that regulates all your hormones. We kept up with it and we tried to see if it's doing anything, and it was growing really slowly, so it wasn't cancerous. It wasn't affecting my hormones in any way. So the risk to actually do surgery was more than just what it was doing to me. So for 4 years, we decided to keep it there and follow up on it. And I had been following up on it so often that every 3 months I would go get an MRI. So this was just very routine for me, that after my birthday, 6 days later, I went and met up with my neurosurgeon for the test results of my latest MRI. And what he told me that day was, actually, Shelly, we've been noticing since January that on your scans, the tumor looked like it was growing, then shrinking, growing, then shrinking. And I'm like, hold up. I know I didn't become a doctor, but I was pre-med, and I know that tumors don't grow and shrink. And he's like, you're correct. What happened is your tumor is causing hemorrhaging, which is internal bleeding of the brain. And we have to remove it right away because it's so close to your optic nerve that you will permanently be blind if we don't do something right away, or worse, you could altogether die. So I went into emergency surgery right away. My dad was in India for business. He wasn't even in the country, and I had to go into surgery, and there was just my mom, my 2 best friends, and my brother. That's all I had. So we quickly rush into the operating room. They do the surgery on me. I didn't even get a chance to even think about what's happening. It wasn't enough time for me to process like, oh, I'm going through such a serious surgery, I might die. But my family, on the other hand, when I was in surgery for those 4 hours, that's what they were thinking the whole time. They were crying. They were so nervous that I wasn't going to come out, or I would come out and I'd be brain dead, or I'd come out and I'd be blind, or I would come out and my hormones wouldn't regulate properly. I'd never be able to have children. There were so many issues that could have happened. I'm happy to say after the surgery, nothing bad happened to me. And this is the miracle that I'm trying to explain. So much bad stuff could have happened to me before the surgery, and it could have happened to me after the surgery too. But it didn't. God gave me this chance to live. It was like my second chance. And from this point on, my perspective on everything changed. Even my parents were starting to become nice to me. Even to this day, they're super sweet to me. And I'm like, I know who you really are, okay? You don't need to be this nice to me. No, I'm kidding. They've been amazing this entire track of starting my company and everything. And I've been so grateful to have them. But right after my surgery, okay? We're talking fall 2015. This is the semester that I'm going to go to full time now at Ross. 3 days after my surgery, I'm hyped up on drugs, right? And I tell my dad, listen, I really want to go to class because I've had this change in mindset. Okay, I'm going to live every single day to the fullest now. And he's like, Shelly, you are drugged. You're not going to remember a single thing in your operations class. I'm not taking you. I'm like, no, Dad, I gotta go. So he drove me to class and he sat in the Ross parking lot for the full 2 hours while I was there. And that was it. That was the start of my complete dedication to business. And I didn't know this, but also entrepreneurship. Because that semester I started taking classes like strategic brand management and new product innovation. And I'm learning about all these big brands like Google and Apple and Amazon and how they started their companies and they have a brand. And I sat there thinking, I could do this too. Why can't Sahi be a big brand? And so I kept thinking about this the whole time. I was in my classes. After my finals that semester, December 18th, 2015, I walk into the ZLI office. Now, mind you, I've never ever explored entrepreneurship. I just had this idea in my head that, I'm obsessed with makeup. Thanks to my grandma, she's imprinted this whole thing in my head. And I know that I can't find products that work for my skin. So I went in and I sat down on Anne Perigo's couch and I said, listen, I've got this idea. It's probably stupid. There are so many makeup companies out there. But yeah, so this is my idea, but it's dumb. That's basically what I said. And Anne's like, hold on, wait. You have to figure out if you have a viable business or not. You have to actually create a business plan, see what your market size is, who are your competitors, is someone else doing this already, makeup for medium skin, like figure this out. So she gave me a list of things to do, which was essentially the beginning of my business plan, and she sent me off. She thought I would take an entire semester to get it done. 3 weeks later, after winter break is done, I walk in and I have everything answered. And she's like, whoa, this type of dedication I've never seen. Let's get started. So she started to handhold me and guide me through the whole process. Everyone at ZLI did. I went through the Dare to Dream grant. I did the Zell Entrepreneurs program. Basically, every workshop that ZLI had, I was there. I took advantage of everything. Even if I thought I would only get 20% out of it, I was there because I knew that 20% would be worth it. I actually started the company with a Kickstarter campaign. So I put in a lot of my own money from Ford. I didn't have to sell any of my red bottom shoes, but whatever money I had remaining in my bank account, I put into the company. And I got $5,000 from friends and family off of Kickstarter. And that was enough for prototypes. And I was talking to anyone under the sun about my company, anyone who would listen. So here I am sitting in the sauna at the gym with my best friend. And I'm stressing out about my prototypes not being delivered on time. And some guy sitting in the sauna is like, oh, hey, you have a makeup company? Perfect, my wife's an influencer. You should give her free product. And I'm like, yeah, sir. Everyone with 200 followers on Instagram thinks they're an influencer. Like, sure. And he's like, no, really, my wife has 50,000 followers on YouTube. You should meet her. She's Colombian. She has no friends. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I actually met up with her, and she was the sweetest woman in the world. Her name's Maria Durkic. And when I met her, she said, hey, I'm going to this beauty event called Gen Beauty in Toronto. Want to come with me? And I was like, yes, of course, let's go. So we went to Toronto together, this girl that I just met. And this festival called Gen Beauty, it's basically where a bunch of brands have booths and they're giving out free products to people that are beauty makeup lovers, And I'm over there with swatches of my prototypes on my arms. I've got marks and really crappy business cards. And I'm walking around to anyone that will listen. I'm giving them my business card and showing them my products and telling them my website will be up in 2 months, right? And a lot of the women were really excited about it. And some Italian dude from the corner of my eye was watching me the whole time. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to get in trouble because other brands have been paying for booths here and I didn't pay for a booth. I'm just walking around with swatches on my arms like a crazy person. But he walked up to me and he's like, tell me about your brand. So I did the whole spiel to him and he's like, okay, well, I'm Marcelo, the CEO of Ipsy, the subscription box service that's running this event. I would like to order your products and put it into my box. And I was like, stop! I can't even believe I'm talking to somebody so important and so rich and so cool right now, and you want my products? I'm like a nobody. And from there on, he handheld me Honestly, like he vetted out my suppliers, actually introduced me to a second supplier, helped me create more products. And this month, actually, we were featured in a Nipsey box. And we're going to be featured in another one in June, which is amazing. Like, that's exactly the brand recognition that I needed to kickstart this company. My point is, you have to take risks. Yes, I felt silly walking around with swatches on my arms at this event that I didn't belong in, and I looked so informal when other brands had like thousands of dollars put into their booths. But I did it because it helped in some way. So you have to put yourself out there and take risks. That's exactly what I did when I went through MBC, and I put myself out there, you know, and I told my story, and I eventually ended up winning money. But what I want to stress to you is like this calculated risk that I took. You see, after I finished my MBA, I was trying to figure out, like, should I recruit or should I do my company full-time? And I went with a full-time route because I got into an accelerator program, because that came with money and that came with space and resources and mentors. So it was a calculated risk that I took. I gave myself enough padding to ensure success. After that, I won basically the Zell Founders Fund invested another $100,000 into my business. I also won the Rise of the Rest competition, which was another $100,000. And I'm still actively involved in the Zell Entrepreneurs program, constantly meeting people, mentors, advisors, friends in the community that are all helping me with my business. And if you ask me, back when I was 20, back when I had just told my parents I wasn't going to be a doctor, what I'd be doing with my life today, I would have never imagined that a couple months ago I was in Hong Kong meeting with suppliers, or that just a couple weeks back I was in New York meeting the most famous beauty editors in beauty and fashion. Like, this is my life now, and it's because I took the chance and I made it. These are dreams that I could have never dreamt of 8 years ago, but I allowed myself to get there because I had this life-changing experience. And the best part is now that I get to see other customers. I get to see people around the world, even in Iceland and Mexico, wearing my products, saying that they love what I'm creating. Like, that's the most fulfilling thing in the world. So I highly suggest, if you guys have an idea, go for it. Do the research, create a viable business plan, and if everything pans out, go for it. You don't need to go through a near-death experience like I did to realize that you need to live every moment to the fullest and your happiness is most important. Take my near-death experience as your own, you're right, and go for it.